live.
All right. Welcome back to World's Strongest Opinions with the most recent under 90. I don't know. Is it, I guess, technically world champion, right? It's a world championship. People came from all around the world. Kaos Classic. Dan Benson, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, it's an early one for us to get our friends overseas on.
Yeah. True. I was like, I'm not the biggest morning person, at least the biggest Saturday morning person. So I was like, I would definitely do this for Dan Benson.
I do appreciate it.
Yeah, we made a little bit of an exception for the Kaos Classic champ.
Thank you.
But yeah, dude, I mean, amazing performance, very dominant performance.
Yes.
How are you feeling? I mean, it's not been long, been about a week since the show. I mean,
it's tough. I mean, people have asked me all week, sort of, has it even sunk in yet? And largely, I don't think it has. I'm not sure it will, because I'm obviously now 2 weeks away from the European Championships as well. But daily, the trophy and the weightlifting belt is just up here behind me on the bookshelf, and the trophy's downstairs. So I see it every day, every time I walk past it, and it just it's a weird, unexplainable feeling. But no, I genuinely don't think it's sunk in yet. That like you said, you could call this the world. You know, that people came from around the world. So I'd like to call myself the unofficial world's strongest under 90, and it feels incredible. It really, really does.
Yeah, and I just kind of stumble over that because Luke didn't call it a world championship, but the reality is you had the best of the best from all over the world showing up. I mean, you had some incredible athletes in that field, and to come out, especially with such a dominant performance, I think it's a no-brainer to call you a world champion. So yeah, congratulations, man.
Thank you, buddy. It feels good. It feels really good.
Yeah, congrats indeed. And it looks like you've already been back to it. I saw you hitting the 105 deadlift ladder weights as an under 90 guy.
Yeah. Deadlift is often known I love my deadlifts, and I'm known for that event. Former sort of world record holder as well. So this deadlift ladder that's at Europe's, I do think is maybe a touch on the light side. And so my coach, I had 3 sets on it. My coach said, top set needs to be above competition weight. So, why not try the 105? Maybe if I'd eaten a bit more, I might have tried the open weight, but we'll save that for another day.
That's impressive, though, just a week after doing that, because that was a heavy show. Like it was a really well-run show, and the live stream was amazing.
Absolutely, yeah. I like that about Luke and Rhiannon. They're not afraid to make it a heavy show. And, this is the name of the sport, right?
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference. Like, I think it's interesting because so many people say if people are hitting double digits in the nut on a lift or something, like it's probably going to be 10, maybe 11 if it's a really if the weights are appropriate. And you did you got that 11th rep right there under the wire.
Right, yeah, it's right excellent. On the whistle. I got the down, yeah.
Yeah.
On 290 on an axle is pretty that's insanely impressive.
Yeah, thank you. And I was unsure going into the deadlift because obviously, I like it. I'm good at it, but I was against former world record holders. I was against John Hack, for God's sake. So I was like, I need to put on a show, and I need to do something special. Thankfully, obviously, the log came first, which put me ahead of those. Also, that I came after those on the deadlift event, so I knew what I needed to do, and there was no chance I was putting that 11th rep down. Either the whistle was going to blow or I was going to pass out, one or the other.
Yeah.
No, I think that makes sense. And it also shows the importance of the reverse scoring.
Absolutely.
It's really important to be able to see who's going ahead of you and stuff. Sure. I know people tend to kind of struggle with the reverse scoring system for some reason, but it is really important. Like you as a champion, you should be able to know what you're up against and get that appropriate rest time.
You should be rewarded for doing better in the previous event.
Yeah.
100%.
So I was really glad to see that.
That's the benefit of having great promoters like Luke, who care very much about the traditions of the sport. Because we don't see that here. I mean, like John's saying, in the U.S., oftentimes that's just thrown by the wayside.
Yeah.
and it makes it difficult to go out and have to give your absolute 100%. I mean, maybe you do anyway, but when you have to give your 100% on every single event because you don't know where you're going to stack up. I mean, especially if you're the guy that's the first one to go in every single event, even though you're doing extraordinarily well. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It pulls that advantage away.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's definitely a psychological advantage to that. You might, what you give as you give your all in one event might be slightly different. It might be an extra 5% if you know that you're in a better position than you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's super important. But it looked like an amazing show and everything, especially that pool of athletes was wonderful to see and stuff. But like watching your performance as you went on, it was crazy to just like keep that momentum and everything. There was no coasting of like, even on the last event, you're clearly, all you had to do was like finish. You could have taken your time and you still put it all out there.
Yeah. I mean,
it's always good to see.
Yeah. On the power stairs, like you say, all I need to do was finish it. I didn't need to rush, and I would have done something. I might have done it slightly differently had it been closer at the top. I don't understand how people can pace themselves on events. You don't need to go max effort. You don't need to go all out on this. There is no off switch. I'll do what I would have done anyway.
That makes sense. No, keep that because you want to kind of do that in a way. Some people talk about the importance of like training consistently and doing things in a consistent pattern because you don't want to train yourself out of that speed and everything because it's easy to kind of get complacent and everything. And I think, especially when you're at the top of your game, you kind of just have to keep raising that bar because even if there's no one really close to you, you still have to be pushing yourself because you don't want to just kind of like slide ahead or just like easily eke things out. Because we all saw the example of, Tom Stoltman celebrating too early on that Husfeldstone carry or the shield carry. And you're like, everyone knows that moment where you're like, well, why didn't you just keep going till the wheels fell off?
Just kept on going. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess when you're at that level, you're right. It probably makes sense to just go all out every time. But, man, it still is nice to know what you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, it's exciting, and it's still crazy that you're still going to do OSG Europe and everything. That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, 2 weeks. I had 2.5 weeks of training is all I get. But I think I'm very lucky in the respect that the Classic and the Europes have very similar events. So it's not really too dissimilar. The difference with obviously we have max log, we've got log for reps at Europes. Both have a front carry, a shield carry. It's a deadlift ladder versus reps. It's all quite similar. So I like to think that it shouldn't take too much out of me. I just kind of have to recover and then go through a mini peak or a re-peak, just a skill acquisition, if anything else. Just make sure all feels okay.
Sure. So you're actually going to train for 2 weeks. You're not going to just try to rest. And I mean, obviously, I think there's probably some benefit to moving, but
yeah, I think I was itching to get going. I texted Tom, my coach, on Monday when I woke up, asking if I could go start my prep for Europes. He told me that I must be drunk and go back to bed. So I started training. What's today? Saturday. I started training on Thursday. So Thursday, yesterday, and then 4 sessions next week and 2 in the week leading up to Europes.
Gotcha. So it's not too intense, but yeah, I was kind of like I always struggled with that too, going from one show into the next. What's the best thing to do? Should I just rest and recover? Lift light, or try to, like you said, try to peak again. It's I think everybody's definitely a little different, but the confidence goes a long way too, to know that you're still strong, right?
It's still feeling good. I think it's a mixture of things. It depends how well you can recover, I suppose. Sure. If you only need to, the mitigating circumstances, but if you only need a couple of days, and if your sleep's good and your supplementation is good and everything else, then as long as you're sensible with it, I like to think that you can re-peak quite comfortably.
Yeah. How many competitions do you do typically a year?
So this year I didn't bother with the national route because I wanted to focus on a few other things, and specifically focus on a weakness of mine that showed itself at Worlds last year on the Atlas Stones, which was heartbreaking. So I kind of put a lot of effort into Atlas Stones. But typically, maybe if I was to do the full national route, there is 5 or 6 from the regionals up until the Worlds.
Oh wow.
So that I'd compete that many. So you got the regional qualifier, England's, Britain's, Europe's, Worlds. 5.
Wow, that's quite a lot. I think in the U.S. it seems like there's a different kind of pattern of competitiveness or participation in competitions. In the U.S., I think it's hard to do a lot of shows, but you talk to people in Europe, a lot of guys are doing, like, say, 5, 7. I mean, there's people out there doing like 15 shows a year, even, right?
That's quite a bit.
and like that's impossible to. I mean, shouldn't say it's impossible, but it would be really hard to do that here in the US.
For sure,
yeah.
I mean, this year Kaos was my first, and then I've only got Europe's and Worlds anyway, because I took a little bit of time, like I said, to fix my stones. I wanted to work up to and try to break that deadlift world record again, which I kind of got blinded by numbers, and that didn't happen. But I'm in a good place to be able to try again at some point if I choose to.
Yeah.
So
I mean, go ahead, John.
Yeah, because I was going to say, focusing on those events, especially looking of like the scores with OSG last year and stuff, of having it be 7 points difference between 7th place and 1st place, like that can be just all you have to do is have one bad event, and that can knock you down severely.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was tied in first place going into the stones, and I dropped stone number 5. All I had to do was load the 6th stone, and I would have been world champ. But I dropped number 5, and then didn't have time to get number 6 up.
Yeah,
it won't happen again.
Oh yeah, I was like, so what do you do so what all have you been doing to prepare for the stones? Or like, what have you changed up, like technique, or just like working on speed?
Largely speed and confidence with the stones. I was always okay with it, but I was never quick. So you see a lot of guys single motion stones for the first 2 or 3, and then lap and load the second. But I can in training, I can single motion, but it does take me a minute to get to the stone and take a couple of breaths over it. But you can't afford to do that in competition. So I've been really drilling that quite a bit, and just sort of being able to grip and rip the stones, because again, I'd also take too long to get my hands in position, make sure I'm stuck, make sure I'm in a good position to pull off the floor. But now it's kind of like just throw a caution at the wind and just grip and rip, and just know that I can do it, rather than self-doubt or second guess and think that my hand doesn't feel quite right, the stone isn't quite right, the platform's uneven, the floor's uneven. It's just grip and rip, just get it done, and just be a bit quicker with it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value. We've talked to Andrew Clayton about this too in the past. Kind of the thought process of, you're training to compete, or you train how you plan to compete, and repetition, right? You dial in a plan. That way, exactly what you have to do on game day, and you don't have to think about it. You just go out and execute. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it should just be almost autonomous, like it's another training day. Just forget where you are. You're just here to pick stones up, put them on a platform as primary.
Exactly. Yeah, all the thought and the planning should be in training and game day. I mean, of course, things always change a little bit on game day, and you got to be flexible enough to adapt. But yeah, for the most part, you want to walk into competition and just execute.
And kind of forget you're in a competition, because you don't want adrenaline or anything to get the better of you either.
Oh yeah, adrenaline is crazy, especially when you have a big crowd and the buzz. Yeah. Do you take any pre-workout or anything when you're competing? I mean, versus like training versus competition?
No, I don't take anything any different, other than I would do. I typically train off a half decent meal, sort of an hour before, and coffee. That's all I ever need.
That's good. I used to make the mistake of taking too much pre-workout before the first event, and then I'd be just like bouncing off the walls and nervous, and yeah.
Do you get those beta alanine tingles through your head?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that itchy feeling that just feels like bees are crawling all over you.
That's
and just like, that
I hate
that feeling's the worst. And then too, especially if you took too much, like at least for me, I'll crash like 2 hours later and you're in the middle of the event. It's just like, well, all that energy I had is just gone.
Yeah, I learned. I mean, it's been a while now since I used to do that, but I think kind of it's sort of a maturity thing in the sport. And I always ask people what they kind of do leading up to that first event. And I think more people at higher levels tend to not really take a lot of pre-workout because you know the energy of the competition. You're rested, man. That's pre-workout enough.
It's more than enough, yeah, for sure, yeah.
And two, there is something as being like too eager and stuff, or like if sometimes going too fast, if you stumble, like speed is always good, but you think of like a prime example would be John Hack on like the loading the sandbags, running so fast that he almost hit the bar with his face and had to like stop.
Yeah. He nearly took his teeth out.
Yeah, that 5 to 6 seconds like of having to reset yourself or repick can be everything. And you see that happen a lot of times with people of their things of like, if your pick's sloppy and everything, yes, if you're fast enough, maybe you can get it done and stuff. But like having to reset for any reason can slow you down hugely. So it's not about that frantic energy.
No, I think even mistakes like that is as much, it is physically draining, but I think it gets in your head a little bit. Because I'm sure as he was approaching the yoke with the second sandbag, he may have been thinking the same sort of thing, make sure I stop a step earlier than I would have done before. And I definitely think it would have been playing in his head. And you don't need those distractions either.
Yeah, because that's just the worst, is to like miss something or like miss a pick just barely and then have to like reset. Because oftentimes you see, especially with events like the farmer's carry, once you drop it once, it's very easy to just keep dropping it then, even if it happened to just be kind of a freak trip or something like that. Whereas like it's always impressive to like see people keep going with that. And that's a nice thing of like, you mentioned how similar these events are with the OSG and everything. I think those are like, they're smooth events to do. They're fun to watch, and they are like consistent and everything. You don't necessarily have like things aren't too crazy to change up and everything. Like it's nice to have those like similar movement patterns and stuff. I think definitely helps with a well-run show.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
and everything. But overall, it's still just crazy of like that group of people was just like wild to see, especially seeing everyone together. Like it was interesting. Were there any like big surprises you thought from like watching the competitors and everything? Or not? So, yeah.
I'm not sure I'm not sure about big surprise, because I'm really bad at keeping track of, looking at how other people are doing on social media. A conversation I've had many times with people as well is that, do you ever look at who you're competing against and, look at their lifts on social media? I don't see the point. No, it was just nice to compete with sort of current and former world champs as well. So, Tyler Davies and Ben Donnan as well. No one sort of, they performed as well as I thought they did, or maybe thought they should have done. CJ was very, very good as well. I enjoyed. I like CJ. I've got a lot of time for him. Trying to think, John Hack as well. I was unsure how he would perform, being coming from a powerlifting background, and I think it kind of showed on some of the events. Excuse me, like that he is incredibly strong. Like a powerlifter would be, but I just don't think he's enduring is the word I've used. So like with the Husafel carry, for example, he was incredibly quick off the line, but slowed equally as quick when he started to get tired. So I was intrigued to see how he would get on. But like with the deadlift, everything went as expected. Ben, Gavin, and John all performing incredibly well.
Yeah, because it was the big surprise for a lot of us was seeing how fast he moved, because people did not expect that with like the Husafel bag carry. I don't think any of us I don't think I've ever seen someone lap someone a full lap on him. Like that was the crazy thing, to just like watch him go against Nick and like lapped him and then just stopped and everything. Exactly, I was like, that's sprinting and everything he does like that. I think that, because that seems to be the biggest weakness sometimes with powerlifters, is like they don't have that speed for moving events. It's like, so I was very surprised to see him kind of almost pick up points.
I would say though, also, I mean, this is his first strongman competition. He's had to really dramatically change his training regimen to prepare for this, and to come out and put up a podium finish is very impressive. It shows a lot of potential, given some time to dial in his conditioning, and I think he can be he can definitely be a force to be reckoned with. Let's put it that way. I think.
Do you think he'd move over to sport, over to strongman?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, John. Heck, I imagine there's probably a bit more money in powerlifting for him.
Yeah.
So I mean, we see that a lot of times. There's some really great athletes out in the world that would do extraordinarily well in strongman, but they're, they got to pay the bills. And,
for sure. Yeah.
And I think they end up where the money is. There's been several over the years that have left, even World's Strongest Man to go to boxing, right? Not just saying, Thor, but now his name's escaping me. Errol Haugen, I believe he did the same thing. There's one more out there, so yeah, it happens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I hope he does, because like you say, he's got a lot of potential. Not necessarily full time, but just does the odd shows here or there, or gets honorary invites or qualifications or whatever. But I do think he would do incredibly well. He has messaged me since saying that he won't let me, forget that 11th rep, and it's lit a fire within him to come back and do it again sometime. But I do hope that comes out.
Yeah. I mean, there's some people in there that really, I think, surprised a lot of people. So it was a great group, and yeah, I look forward to seeing. Hopefully, we see a lot of those guys in the same competition here again soon, because I'd like to see, give you a chance to definitely prove that you. I mean, I think you did anyway with the dominant lead that you had at the end, but
just 15.5 points. I'm just saying.
Yeah, 15. That's pretty. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
That really is insane.
Just wild. And I think the nice thing, though, is that I think John Hack kind of proves, and you prove of I think being really good at deadlifts is super important for strongman and everything. Because you have a lot of people out here who Mateusz is an amazing lifter and everything, but would lose so many points on deadlift that you can come in first and everything, and you come in last in one event, especially with a pool of 25 guys, losing 25 points on an event can just set you back so substantially. You can
flip the table completely, yeah.
And everything. So I think that's always a nice reminder of deadlifts are great. Pressing is okay and everything, but I'm always a big fan.
I've never been a great presser. That can go. I've never been great.
I think you just have to be good. You have to be. You can't have any weaknesses in strongman. But there's not. Points are, I think, a lot of times made up in the moving events, medleys, and such. That's where you start finding a bit bigger point spread, where your lists for reps a lot of times end up right. You're always going to have a big grouping of people that are within one rep of each other, or ties and everything else, and so points get split. Where moving events, you almost never see a tie. And when there is, you got to question something, right? In my opinion, what happened? That's almost impossible odds. So
that makes sense. So, what did your training look like up before this? When do you kind of start to taper off and get ready for water cuts or anything for a big event like this? Because I know your next one's a big thing.
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on the lift largely, sort of, and what's happening. So, for example, the deadlift. So, my last heavy deadlift will typically be anywhere from 10 to 14 days out from competition, and then I won't lift heavy again. Most similar to a heavy yoke as well. Everything else, I will typically train in the week before the competition, and then taper it, and only have 2 or 3 sessions in the week of the competition. And it's that week in which I would start my water cut as well from the Monday, starting with a slight calorie reduction just to bring weight down, which works perfectly this time. And then depending on when I'm weighing in. So this weigh-in was on the Saturday. So I loaded water from Wednesday morning, sorry. And then I was nil by mouth all day Friday until I weighed in on Saturday.
What weight do you walk around at typically?
I walk around sort of 97, 98 kilos.
Okay.
And then I cut from around there. Calorie reduction for the first couple of days, and I tend to get down to 95 by then. And then just a water cut for the last 5 kilos.
Yes, that's a healthy cut.
Yeah. It's not, I've been through a few that's been quite stubborn and it's been really quite tough, and you're kind of sitting in a sauna for hours on end, wondering why the hell you're doing this. But
Yeah.
it's not a lot of fun. But those are the cuts that I hate doing. I'd rather reduce food intake for a little bit or increase output, just to shave a kilo or two off, just to make the saunas a little bit more bearable.
Sure. Do you think water loading, you don't lose that much with water loading, or?
I think so. I think I've lost this prepping for Kaos. I lost 4 kilos.
Okay. Yeah,
through water loading.
It's probably about what I've experienced too, somewhere in there, 4 or 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So I find if I get myself down to sort of 95 kilos, the first 4 kilos will come off quite easy, and then the rest comes from, I've got a dog, just take the dog for a walk for a couple of hours at a time and just try and get out in some sunshine, just to make the world seem a little bit nicer while you're starving and dehydrated.
No, the sun's always good. And the impressive part about this competition was seeing some of the cuts the guys had to do, but also watching these guys come up from the 80s.
Yeah.
Everything all did really well. Seeing people like pull their weight and everything, it was nice to like watch like Josh Lancaster, so a friend of the show, like watching him as a like 80 guy do like his deadlift, like watching him fight through that hitch was like Derek Poundstone style hitching.
That was a battle, and I know that it was a big mental win for him as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was great to see him pull that.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool part about all of it, like you said, is seeing that like camaraderie and that competition and everything. Because it is like the nice thing about the show is it was dramatic for like everyone below your standing. You were up there pretty high, but it was crazy to see the difference it could make of like being on the podium, and all it takes is like missing one of the power stairs or something like that. You can instantly just drop down because it is such a stacked field, which I think showed that it was a pretty solid show. And stuff.
Yeah, and like, it's always good to see. You've got the best in the world when there's a very few points differential, really.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll see somewhere it's just like for people in like the top. Sometimes we've seen it at these like higher level open shows where the guys at the top 3 guys are 10 to 12 points ahead of everyone else, and then it's just by the time you get to the bottom, you have people who just like had almost no points or just like the 3 or 4. So I think this was interesting to see everyone picking up at least a good chunk of points.
Yeah, I think
stuff,
so,
especially in that top 10 group of like just going through that roster and everything was crazy to see. And it was nice to see like Nick O'Hare, despite some grip issues, come out there on second place. Was a solid win for him. I was like,
yeah, absolutely.
It was
nice
nice
well
to
deserved.
see. Oh,
and,
yeah.
Well deserved, and well deserved for surviving that Husafel hold at the end as a tiebreaker as well.
That's true. I was like, that also shows the importance of a good Husafel pick. I liked his celebration where you just let go and the bag was still on him and everything. As soon as I saw John do a low pick of it, I was like, that's a lot on the forearms, and just like doing an isometric bicep hold with that.
It would be horrible.
I was like, ugh. Yeah, but that was neat to see.
I don't envy those guys having to do that tiebreaker at all.
I know. I was like, I thought at first, I was like, would they do countbacks or anything? Like whoever weighed in lower or something.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have like something that's a solid test like that. But all of those holds, it's the same as like when people do the ones where they're like, oh, just take like a 25 kilo plate and just hold it out in front of you, and whoever drops it first. I'm like, that's always brutal after a long competition like that.
I think, I respect Luke and Brandon for the way they decided they were going to do the tiebreaker. Pick the one event from the day where the 2 athletes were closest, because it's fair. Because, like they said, you'll often get a tiebreaker which, if it's predetermined, will almost certainly favor one over the other. So I think they did. I think they did a fantastic job with that.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, they did. Luke has been a great friend to the show and everything, but it was just phenomenally run. And the nice thing is the live stream was very timed well and stuff. It didn't feel like there were huge, long, like 2-hour gaps between everything. Like it seemed to run very smoothly, especially with that pool of athletes and stuff. It could have been very easy of like to have these like huge gaps and everything. I felt bad though for another friend of the show, Victoria Long, with her hamstring on that deadlift, because it went up so quickly.
Yeah, her previous lift 297 before, if I remember rightly. That flew effortlessly. That record was there for her. And it is heart-wrenching, heartbreaking to, an injury to any athlete is heartbreaking. But when you when the record is as good as guaranteed, it's not a nice feeling.
Oh yeah, it's a brutal
I wish for
feeling.
a speedy recovery, of course.
Yeah, especially too because you have people coming up there really close. Of what's Lucy Underdowns or
Lucy
Lucy
Underdown,
Unders? Watching her of like what was it? She just 2 weeks ago hit the 661 for like a triple.
Yeah, it
For
was
a
like
triple,
300 for a triple, man. It was
Yeah,
insane.
then hit 683 in training recently. So I was like, the women's numbers have gone up so crazy in the past few
Yeah.
years.
For sure, yeah.
Like it's interesting to, I think, see this, hopefully this new era that I think strongman's entering in, where you have like everyone's being challenged to their best. So you have these really good shows and stuff. Like you said, of being able to see like everyone put out their best for this, like the Chaos Classic and everything. Like that was a huge pool, and everyone was just like showed up really well. So I was like, it's always good to see and everything. And it's nice that you came out of this heavy show without like any injuries and were able to like go back to deadlifting heavy within a few days.
Yeah. I was very grateful for that actually. I've been, touch wood. I think, definitely touch wood. I've been quite good with injuries. I don't think I've really picked anything up, which is both a blessing and quite boring for content, I suppose. But for the most part, no, I'm fit and healthy, which is quite nice.
Yeah, we don't want you to be injured or unhealthy. That's that's not good content.
Yeah, but then
So-
also, yeah.
Go ahead, John.
I was like, it's always good to like show that like I mean, injuries will happen in this sport. Darren's always like, it's not an if, it's a win and stuff. But I think it's important to have that like injury prevention and kind of like knowing your body and stuff is really important at that level, because it is like all it takes is doing something a little bit sloppy or like not getting as tight as you need, and like injuries can happen. So it's always, I think, phenomenal to like come out of a show like this doing so well and still like already doing another show within 2 weeks is crazy.
Yeah.
Everything. Darren, what were you going to say? I feel like I interrupted you.
No, I'm actually kind of wondering, what outside of strongman, I know we kind of talked a little bit early on. What does life look like? I mean, it sounds like you got family, kids, work. I assume that work is as a coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that pretty much summarizes my life. We got the family and the kids. Otherwise, I'm a coach primarily online, where I sort of coach powerlifters and strongmen. I have a few that I see sort of face to face as one-to-one, just so I can sort of get out of the office every now and then and see some people and some sunshine.
Sure.
Otherwise I'm just sat here at this computer typing away. But aside from that, otherwise, socializing, and I'm a little bit of a gamer as well. But yeah, for the most part, just family and gym and work, really.
Yeah. I always find it interesting how many coaches have their own coaches.
Yeah.
And do you typically, have you had like just one coach, or do you had multiple coaches over the years?
Yeah. Over the years, I think I'm with my third coach now.
Okay.
Over the years, Josh Lancaster was actually my coach prior to Tom Hibbert that I have now. The first ever coach was Dan Thomas. He's known as London strength coach. He was my first, and so I'm with my third now, and nothing but success with Tom. So I'm over the moon, and not just from a coaching point of view, or at least being coach point of view, but sort of the knowledge that he passes on to me as a coach as well, and the tools that I can use for my own clients. And I've learned a lot from him, not just my own lifting, but sort of implementation for various protocols and things as well.
Do you tend to just let your coaches control all of your programming, or is it sort of a collaboration effort, kind of bouncing ideas off each other to try to find the best result?
I mean, we'll communicate quite frequently, maybe more frequently than Tom would like, but but no, for the most part, I leave him to do my programming. I fully respect him and his knowledge base and I forget 15 to 20 years or however long he's been in the industry for. So he's far more versed than I am and in a much better position to sort of be able to coach. And whilst, yes, he'll ask for my opinion or I'll give my opinion, it doesn't necessarily mean he has to listen to it.
Sure.
But whilst I'm doing my own coaching for my clients, it's one less thing for me to have to worry about. And I just leave it all to him and I just do as I'm told. Mostly.
Nice. Mostly. When the RP6s turn into RP10s.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened, honest.
That's always the hardest though with deadlifts. If things move way too easily and you're like, oh, let's play around with these numbers a bit.
There's always the temptation. Let me just go get my suit and let's try again.
That's true. That feeling where you're like just supposed to work up to like 85% or something, and you're like, that moved like butter. There's definitely more than 15%
maybe
left
this
in the
isn't
tank.
85% anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's always exciting.
I've always been bad about that in training. That I feel like opportunity is always perishable, and when things feel good, I take off. I've always just like, I'm going to do it because everything feels good. This is the right time. Where if you have like percentages programmed for you, 2 weeks down the road is 95% or whatever, who's to say that you're going to feel as good today in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I suppose that's the reason behind the RPE scale, right? Is that
exactly.
you take it as you feel for the day.
Yep. Yeah.
Makes sense. Also, though, you did briefly touch on suits. People who can do reps and deadlift suits, that's insane to me. I struggled with that's the most uncomfortable feeling in the world.
I think that was only my second ever event doing reps in a suit. And yeah, it's not a lot of fun. You just kind of have to forget that you have to breathe. And just commit to the darkness for 60 seconds and then recover afterwards.
Yeah, like that's the crazy part about hitting 11 reps. I don't think many people quite understand. For one, the weight alone is impressive, but to be able to do that in a suit without blacking out after rep 6 is like that. Yeah. That's where the real challenge is. The fact that like watching you fight for that 11th one, I was like, that feeling of like, that's where the real endurance comes in, where it's like, you're like, I can't breathe. I can't reset at the bottom. Like you're just
literally nothing. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing I can do. Just hang on for dear life and just keep going. Just keep pulling.
That's true. I was like, that's impressive and everything. Do you have any special like advice for people with suits or anything? Because I know some people will like really buckle them down, like get them really tight, or with a rep like that, do you do lighter? I saw some people did no straps and everything.
Yeah. Again, I think it's down to the event. So and sort of how comfortable you are being constricted. For max effort, I would go with a tighter suit. But for, like you say, for reps, because there is that necessity to breathe, I would definitely go with lighter straps over the shoulders. And the same thing, I tell my clients on an AMRAP is it's easier to breathe in a suit when you're stood up. So take your breath at the top of each rep. Don't try to breathe at the bottom because we're so compressed in that position. If you can get any breath in, it's not going to be enough to be beneficial. So take your breath at the top. That would be my advice for
That's very wise advice. I liked seeing with people doing like the straps hanging down in front, so at least you can pull yourself out.
Because then you can get out quicker, and
everything. Because that's also the worst feeling. People don't always realize when you're in figure 8 straps and you can barely get out of your straps, and then you're still in your suit, just belted up. I'm like having that easy
trying
access.
Your best to reach round, and you just can't get there.
Oh yeah, no, especially if you like. Whenever I watch people who do like the tight suit deadlifting by themselves, I'm like, that you have to really trust yourself to be able to get out of that just like alone in your garage. I'm like, that's the worst fear.
I think that's also the key is don't do it alone.
Oh yeah. One time I did it in our garage and it was like, I don't know, close to 100 degrees. And it was just the worst feeling in the world. And it's like, dude, then I got sweaty and my hands were sweaty, so I couldn't like pull it off very well. And like, definitely a huge regret.
You kind of just lay there thinking, this is it. This is how I go.
Yeah, I'm like, someone's just going to have to find me at this point. Or like, I've had friends who have had to just be cut out of the suit because it was just too tight. I'm like, that's where it really gets, where you're having your friends try to get you out with a box cutter without cutting you open. Like, I'm like, ugh, that's like the worst of suit lifting. Equipped powerlifting, you got to have a lot of fun with equipment.
Yeah.
I've had to cut a bench shirt off once.
Oh yeah, like those the vinyl ones or the dinners.
Because I mean, it was a cheap one. Thankfully, it was not expensive, but I put it on by myself and I couldn't get it back off. There was I got too sweaty and there was no way it was coming off. So I'm just like, well, Took the scissors to it. It's done.
Oh, like that's wild. So you have, what are your shows lined up for this year again? I was trying
So
to.
I am 2 weeks away from European,
Okay.
which is the August 11th, and then OSU Worlds over in West Virginia starts the 1st of December for 3 days.
Nice.
That's it for this year.
Will you take a good break in between after all those things? Doing like
Maybe for a week.
series?
Maybe for
Okay.
a week. I don't know. Stones are back in, so for Worlds, so that's something I will be spending from now, from post European all the way up to Worlds. So I'll be putting the time and effort into that, like I said, to make sure that it doesn't happen again. There's nothing worse than being able to almost feel that first place trophy and then have it taken away because I dropped a stone. So yeah, I can't do that again. I've got the feeling of winning Kaos, and I don't want that feeling to go. I'm going to take it into Europe, and I'm going to take it into Worlds as well.
Yeah, I think that feeling of having it be so close. I did see something funny on Instagram. Chaos, they reposted the picture of Tyler Young almost hitting 168 on the log.
Yes, yeah.
Everything, and everyone was like, Tyler definitely loves this picture. That reminder of like being right there. And she was like, yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite memories.
I felt so. Yeah, he was so close to getting that as well. It was incredibly close.
Dude,
he spoke to me afterwards and said, he's done it a handful of times in training already. Just sadly, unfortunately, he didn't quite get it on the day.
Yeah, I'm glad he's never been hurt, because his videos of like watching him have the log flip behind him and everything.
That was a 400 pound. That was a 400.
Oh yeah, that's a video that just shocks you, is to watch someone's arms fly all the way back holding 400 pounds and to like be okay. I'm like, that feels like there's so much that could go wrong with this movement.
My shoulder hurts just watching that video.
Yeah.
I was like, but he was so close. And I was like, that was neat too, of watching guys come down from the 105s. Everyone just kind of meeting in the middle there, which shows, I think it's a very good, like, it's a fun competitive class to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Especially the talent pool there. It's always impressive and stuff. I'm like, but OSG, that's going to be a real fun one. And everything, and it's nice that you fly out for that and everything. I think it can be hard for some people coming across.
Yeah. I did wonder. I wondered how that would impact the Kaos Classic as well, because whether depending on when their flights were and having to make weight and water cut and how that much travel sort of impacts their performance. I've often wondered like how the Europeans and the rest of the world, how that would change how we would perform over in the States versus you guys coming over to us and how that would change things. So yeah. I do wonder how much that impacted them for Kaos, but at Worlds, it will be okay. Sure.
Yeah, I've competed in Europe a couple of times, and I definitely say it's a little harder to water load, because I've always left, like a week ahead of time or close to. So my water load is sometimes partly on a plane, and you buy like 7 liters of water for the 7-hour flight, right? and you're occupying the lavatory the entire time.
Absolutely.
Everybody's looking at you like, why are you drinking so much water, dude?
Oh, that sounds miserable. And everyone's like, sir, the seatbelt sign's on, and you're like, no, I have to go.
I have to go, man.
Go.
Dude, it's actually what's worse too is when you hit like turbulence and they put the seatbelt sign on and the pilot comes over the intercom, like everybody has to stay in their seats. And I'm like, dude, I have to piss.
I
can't. So I mean, there is that, but I've also found out too that, man, the last time I went to Finland, it was actually kind of strange. It was a long trip. I drove probably another 5 hours after my flight. I got to my Airbnb and I passed out, and I slept for like, I don't think I've ever slept so long in my entire life. I think I got there at 10 p.m. local time, and I woke up at 1 p.m. And I kept looking at my phone, and I'm like, that can't be the right time. There's no way, because I was like just out cold. But the nice thing is I recovered really, really well from all that, and I felt amazing. So I think it can be hard to travel and compete, but at the same time, I mean, I think if you give yourself enough time to acclimate, there's not really, I don't think it's a huge impact. It wasn't for me anyway.
Like
I
flying
think you
out
can
early,
mitigate
I
it.
think is key.
Yeah,
you can.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
I
I'd
think
agree, you can mitigate it.
watching people fly out just 2 days before or something
that's
like
not
that,
great.
that's tight because just flying in general is just like not a comfortable thing for people
No.
and stuff. Like there's no way of like, at least flying internationally is somewhat more comfortable than domestically because our domestic airlines are just awful. Like they're just cramped. You have to
They
pay for
are.
everything.
Yeah.
They'll heckle you for wanting 2 drinks. They'll be like, "Do you want your little cup of water?" Like we don't want people using the restroom. So I think eventually they should have something in like Greenland, so everyone has to fly to get
Yeah,
there.
I'd
Just
like that.
something
Yeah.
right in the middle. Just like test everyone. Be like everyone has about the same flight distance.
Well, I always go through Iceland when I
Ooh,
travel to
yeah.
Europe because it's a little faster,
Nice.
and you do get a stop at Keflavik, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, because you said what is it? Iceland's their airlines
Iceland
are
Air is really nice.
yeah subsidized by the government, so they're not like cramming you in like sardines.
But yeah, I mean, I had one flight where it was actually remarkably empty. I had like an entire row, window to window, to myself, so I just sprawled out and like slept the entire time. It was amazing. I don't know that's not always the case. I mean, I've been on full planes on them with them too, but yeah.
So when will you be flying out to Charleston then for OSG?
So you say about not traveling sort of a couple of days prior. That's exactly what I'm going to have to do.
Yeah, shit.
Just work commitments and the family and kids and things. So yeah, we're weighing on the Thursdays, and I'm going to be landing on Wednesday morning. So I'm going to have 24 hours in Virginia before I weigh in, and then another 24 hours before competing. So it's not going to be a lot of fun. The way it's kind of worked out is that I'll be water loading before flying, and then I will be not eating and drinking whilst on the plane, which will be great. I think it looks like 14 hours worth of travel or something, and yeah, no food and drink during that time. So it's gonna be tough. But.
Do you ever when you're like really close, just have something like a little like peanut butter or some nuts or something, or do you just really just go hardcore abstain until you hit that?
Yeah, I think that I tend to go as you put it, the hardcore and to abstain from it all. I don't think that realistically and to be pragmatic about it, it probably has very little impact to the weight loss if I were to eat something. But in my head, if I was to be 100 grams too heavy when I first weigh in, I'm gonna be like, well, it was definitely down to the peanut butter. I'm not doing that again.
Yeah. So I used to be that way too, and I started having like some unsalted like almonds or something on hand just to kind of help curb that insane hunger that you get in that 24-hour period.
Yeah.
And I'd watch when I'm the scale, like I used to like to get within maybe a kilo and a half or something of making weight before I go to bed, maybe 2 kilos. So I know that when I sleep, I'm invariably going to lose a kilo at least.
Exactly.
And so I always get to a point where I'm just like, I eat a couple unsalted, peanuts or almonds just to curb that hunger. But I have eaten like some fruit snacks and saw my weight go up because of water retention or not move.
Of course. Yeah,
like sugar and salt are definitely not great at that point in time. But yeah, I can't. Yeah. I found I just got to a point where I'm like, I have got to start eating a little something.
See, for me, for this prep,
an ice cube or something.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think for me in this prep for Kaos, the hunger wasn't the issue. I was fine. It was the thirst, and just getting whenever I'd stand and talk to clients or whatever, the cotton mouth I'd get where my lips are just sticking together. That was the worst part of it. Hunger I can deal with, but it was the thirst that got me this time.
Sure. I hate it. I hate both.
Hate both. Overall, it just sounds miserable.
And I'm actually I haven't competed now. It's been like a year and a half. I don't know if I'll compete in Strongman again, but I don't miss that part.
You don't want to do some of these OSG events, seeing all these things happen?
I'm toying with the idea of jumping back in, but I don't know. I'm old and my shoulder's messed up now. Well, I mean, it'll heal. It's actually my proximal bicep. I started doing heavies, Highland Games, and I yanked my proximal bicep. I strained it pretty bad.
Right.
So I'm just being lazy now. I'm still training. I'm in the gym. I just can't do anything with my arms. So I'm like, I kind of want to get back into strongman, and I don't know. Getting old. I did it for too long.
Never too old. You're never too old.
Never too old.
That's true. Because how old are you now?
I'm 35.
Okay, so you still got time.
You got a lot of time.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. I feel old, but I appreciate that. I've got
True.
time.
Yeah, I think it's having kids. That's what I hear.
Everybody
in their 30s is like Bob Schwantz. He's always talking about how old he is, and I was like, give him hell. I'm like, dude, you're like 6 or 7 years younger than me.
No, I don't. Age is one thing. I don't think I'll ever stop competing. I don't have a desire to stop. OSG, they've got the Masters 50 plus, so I don't. Even then, I don't know if I'd accept the Masters category. So when I reach my 40s, I think I'm still going to compete in the under 90s. I don't want to compete in the Masters.
Yeah, that's how I am. Exactly. I've never done a Masters, and I don't really plan to.
No,
kind of feel as long as I can be competitive in the Opens, and that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Especially the weights a lot of times for the Masters things are like you're essentially doing the weights of like 2 weight classes below what you'd be competing in, or a weight class below, and it's like doesn't necessarily like that's the part that always like shocks me is like at least looking to most people, I'm like that difference between being 39 and 40, you're not losing 100 pounds on every lift with that overnight change.
For me, like competing in the Opens for 14 and a half, almost 15 years, going to Masters is like returning to novice.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Going the wrong way.
Yeah. I still
just walk away with my dignity.
That's true. I still, I mean, two of like the best strength idols out there are like Ode Haugen and Mark Felix, as far as like men competing late that time. And like, I mean, Ode still have like to only start competing in your 50s, like that's crazy as a competitive athlete.
Indeed.
And stuff. So I'm like, I think as long as like you train sustainably and everything, focus on your grip. Grip's never going to be overrated there.
No, absolutely.
And stuff. I'm like, that'll earn you points in almost everything. Cause that's always like, that's the killer. Like that's the Achilles heel for so many people competing. If your grip's not there and stuff, it's like, you can lose points on so many things. Like your carries will be harder. Your farmers will be harder. Like, and all it takes is like those drops and stuff. I feel like shout out to CJ and stuff. Like his farmer's run was insane to not drop it in between those links and everything. I just like it was heartbreaking the power stairs for him and stuff. Of like,
I wanted him to get that top step so badly.
Yeah, we all did. Like I was like, it's there. Like it's there. It's so close and stuff. But I think that's part of the drama of the things of like that height and everything because it's still. Yeah. That was a crazy event. And then, of course, like watching John Hack not put the stairs down before the first step to just run up and just slightly lift it and just put it on there with like all 3 of them. I was like,
that's impressive.
Yeah. His grip strength in general. I'm like, it would be nice to see you all do a nice match.
That's the advantage of being a powerlifter, though. They don't wear straps. All their deadlifts are. So, I mean, that builds a tremendous amount of grip strength. And that doesn't get talked about a lot. These guys that are deadlifting 900 to 1,000 pounds without straps, like that takes incredible grip strength.
Yeah, and that's because the grip is important. I mean, most of us will remember. What was it? Arnold a few years ago. I say a few years ago as if he hasn't been retired for a while now, but I still remember Halfthor did the deadlift, and the woman, she was like, do you think that'll tax your grip at all? Like the interview. And he was like, no, my grip's going to be fine. Like deadlift doesn't affect your grip at all. And then he couldn't even get the frame off the ground. Like couldn't get it fully up the thing. Just like would do those little hops. And then going head to head with Mateusz, who did that just astonishing 7-second run or 6-second run up like the hill. You're like, I still remember that because it's just like those moments where he's like, no, deadlift doesn't affect my grip at all. Won't have issues. And then as soon as you picked it up, I was like, ugh.
And it may
Uh,
not, right? I mean, that's the, like you said, that's the drama of the sport. Had he ever, trained on implement like that, who knows? He probably didn't know that it was going to affect his grip. And weird things affect grip, like those things behind me, the guitars. People ask me all the time if I still play, and I'm like, they just sit there and collect dust, because I was shredding like 3 days out from a show, and just it takes a huge toll on your wrists and your forearms. I hate, for one of the first times I've ever had real grip problems was then, and I'm like, man, I love to do that, but I love strongman more. Yeah.
Because it does. Those things will take like 30 pounds off your farmer's
Dude,
carry.
it's
Just
stupid.
like, because your left hand, suddenly you're just like, my left hand's always lagging behind my right hand in general. But it's like those moments you don't think of, those little things that'll pick up. So, but to have you guys do a matchup again would just be astonishing.
I'd be all over it. I'll come and fly over, and I'd be more than happy to have a matchup with them.
Because that's what we'd all love to see. And I think the nice thing was you had such a good time of it. I know some people struggled with, like Gavin McNamee. I know he had a little bit of a rough showing and stuff. It's just hard with such a good crowd though.
Yeah.
And everything. I'm like, just looking at this list, the top 20 list is just, it's crazy. And it's nice. Hopefully it was nice seeing Ben Donnan up in the 90s and everything. I don't know if he's going to stick around there, because it feels like he belongs there.
I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, it does. I think he's going to be at Europe's as well and World, so he needs to be an 80 for both of those. And amazingly, Ben coming in fourth, and he competed in a 105 the week before over in Central Europe somewhere. So he competed the week prior to Kaos Classic and still came in fourth place. It's a testament to him as an athlete as well. He's a different breed. He really is.
It's 100%. I'm like, overall, it's going to be great. And the nice thing is they're already ramping up other shows for next year, because I assume you'll definitely be back for the Kaos Classic next year. Got to defend your title. And that's the impressive thing, too, is they were talking about as soon as the scores were settled out, that they all like sent you guys the Venmo prize money right there. So you have it like before you even stood up with your trophies.
Yeah. I just finished. Yeah, just at the once they'd done the scores, Rhiannon came over and asked for my details straight away. It's like, this is it's from a promotion point of view, it's they're insane. They're head and shoulders above everybody else. They're insane.
That's true. Luke is definitely one of our favorite people. It was nice watching him run around there, helping in between things and stuff. I'm like,
he was sweating more than we were sometimes.
I was watching that. I was like, I had to put on his belt for the power stairs. It's like,
I saw that. Yeah,
that's the main thing. It's like resetting power stairs or something like that is always a challenge, because it's not quite like you can like easily throw them on a dolly and like move them around.
Just roll them. Just tip them over and roll them.
That's yeah. That actually is really smart. I didn't even think about that. Just rolling power stairs. Okay, that's a game changer. That's not bad.
Work smarter, not harder, man.
It's true. And I think that's the important part about all of this stuff and everything. Is just like having that, like being smart about it and stuff, because you're doing so many of these, especially when you have like a family and everything to take care of. You can't be taking like risks quite as much. I mean, it is a risky sport and stuff, but I think you can always like risk mitigation stuff. Like, what do you do for recovery and everything? I know some people have like extensive recovery regimes. Some people do.
No, I don't. My recovery is pretty good. So there's a few things. I'll prioritize where I can. Sleep and relaxation and walks. Take the family and the dogs out for walks and stuff. I think walks are quite often overlooked for recovery. I think they are fantastic for it. Aside from that, using hot cold therapy, and I have an osteo and a masseuse that I see sort of once a month or so, and almost certainly before each competition. So I saw my sports massage therapist a week prior to Kaos, and I've got another one I need to check. I can't remember. Sometime next week I need to go see her again.
You said osteo.
Osteopath, yeah. So maybe sort of working with bones and my joints and things.
Not like a chiropractor. Where's that?
No, I mean, chiropractic is sort of a spinal specialist, but osteo is bones, all bones and all joints. Most bones. Oh, I think so. Yeah, all bones and all joints.
Okay.
So yeah, they've often worked around I get a lot of issues. I get issues in my left knee. I have I suspected patellar tendonitis, which only shows itself for overhead events, really. But otherwise, yeah, it's okay. Spinal and spinal manipulation with the osteo and to look after my knees.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard that before. That's why I asked you to touch on it. I don't know if that's something we may have that in the US. I imagine we do, but
apparently.
It's not something that people talk about very often here. So that's interesting.
Yeah. They said that it's a growing thing. It's one of the fastest growing industries in the country, but it's kind of like a holistic approach to the human body. Of
right. Well, chiropractic is very holistic as well. Yeah,
that's true.
I don't think they're too dissimilar.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, someone out there will correct me, I'm sure, but I don't think they're too dissimilar.
Yeah,
that's true. That's how it always feels, and then doctors are very quick to like correct you about those things.
Right.
And everything. It's like my one doctor I was seeing for a while, I'd occasionally forget and just call him Luke, and it's always like Dr. Luke. It's not just like you can't just call you.
Yeah, I didn't study for 6 years just to be called Luke.
Does he correct you?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was like, yeah. Or the people on the phone, I'd be like, is Luke in? They'd be like, who? They'd be like, Dr. Luke? I'd be like, yeah, the only Luke that's there. There's only 3 doctors. Like, who am I? I'm not just calling, asking for a random person and stuff. Sometimes it's always like those titles get me.
I guess so, but I mean, when you've put as much time into earning that title, I don't know, it has a lot of value.
Yeah, that's true. So you don't ever want to dismiss things and everything. So address people by their titles. So now we have to address Dan Benson as the Kaos Classic champion under 90 kg. I was like, that really was just an impressive showing, though. And I'm excited to watch you coming up, though. Like, that's exciting too for like Europe's, and everything. That's going to be very exciting. It's interesting that you mentioned the deadlift ladder being light, because that's one of those things that always seems kind of hard for people to gauge.
I do think so. And occasionally, when other people have asked me, I need to remember that I'm not your average under 90 kilo deadlifter. And maybe to other people, the top weight is 300 kilos, 660, which for a 90 kilo athlete, I think we should all be able to do quite comfortably, really. I would much rather sort of shuttle things along a bit. So the under 105 loads would be the 90 kilo load, etc. And the open weight, although it's a big jump, would maybe come down to the 105s. But that's just my opinion. I think that going from 240 kilos to 300 kilos in a ladder, I feel at least is just a little bit light. When I can do all 4 lifts with people loading weights and not running onto another bar, because I don't have 4 bars. When I can do that in 20 seconds or less, I think it's too light.
That makes sense. Yeah, but it's hard though. It's that gauge and stuff, which is also
once again, lots of other athletes they need to account for.
Oh yeah, because it's a hard thing. I think that's why it was nice seeing the 290 seemed like a perfect weight choice for you all this past weekend.
Yeah, although I did ask Luke to put it to 300, but he wouldn't.
That's pretty. I mean, that's heavy. I don't even know that there's been a 105K show with that heavy of a deadlift for reps.
No, OSG World last year for us was 277, and it was no suit.
Yeah. Because I feel like Clash on the Coast was one of the heavier deadlifts for reps that I'd seen in 105. I mean, somebody may correct me here, but that was only maybe 280. Yeah. So it's impressive. The point is that it's impressive how much the weights just keep going up and up and up and up and up, right? I mean, you're doing weights now that like nobody was doing a decade ago in the relative weight class, right? Or even 105s. It's insane. Let alone for 11 reps.
I think that's testament of the growth of the sport as well, I suppose, as well as the athletes.
100%.
And I think that's key in everything, because I think sometimes people will complain about things either being too heavy or too light, and it's like if your field can do it, they should be doing it.
Yeah,
and stuff. Of like, I think oftentimes, like that's part of why we were talking about with CJ Pierce of like going up in weight class. Like, make sure you're always challenging yourself.
Yeah,
and everything, because like otherwise you do have those times where it's easy to kind of stagnate, to be like, well, I got my Kaos Classic belt, like this is like that counts as worlds. It's like no, worlds is still coming up for you, which is crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And stuff to have 2 worlds level shows within like 6 months of each other or less actually.
Shit, yeah,
I'm like,
it is. Yeah.
yeah, which is pretty substantial and everything. I think that definitely you're going to be giving people a good show for that one. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes up from last year and stuff because I know Nick Myers, I think he's still having some health trouble. So
Yeah,
he
I spoke
pulled
to him a
out.
little bit. He was a bit disappointed that he couldn't come over for the Classic. Yeah, he's got a back injury of some sort. So I don't know the details. But yeah, it was a shame he couldn't come over because he's a guy who I'd love to go up against as well. You know, incredible performance last year, former winner. So I think he's and formidable chest hair as well. So I think he's
watching him do shirts Atlas Stones shirtless with tacky on them with that much chest hair. I'm like, oh,
it's insane. Yeah, I was watching him prep for Stones last year, and he actively applies tacky to his chest before he goes out. Well, he did at least last year. This is just mind blowing.
Oh man, that's just like getting your chest waxed, right? I'm like, oh, having those little patches and everything. I still, because one time I used to have like hair past my shoulders. I did Atlas stone to shoulder, and the tacky rolled on the side of my head, and I just dropped the stone without thinking, and it actually tore like chunk of hair straight out of my head. I was like, oh, definitely makes you like learn. But that's a hard thing with these kind of shows, I think, is trying to get everyone in the same room together. And I think Luke did a great job of getting like as close as possible to like everyone in the best in that world.
Much, yeah, the best the
weight
world
class and stuff. Because it is just so hard trying to like organize those things. Because I know some people will call like OSG over here, like they'll be like, it's America, like it's not the world's strongest man because not everyone in the world can make it. But I'm like, it's the best attempt they can.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's not a lot more you can do because you know you set the date and it's up to the athletes to try and to get over here. It's not like we have a week's notice to do it. But there are other sort of issues and commitments and other things that do prevent athletes from being able to come over, I'm sure.
Yeah, and at least it's on the East Coast, so from Europe, that's not too bad. Yeah. California gets a bit of a travel. That West Coast can be hard and everything. But yeah, I think that's going to be really exciting to see how you do there and everything. That's going to be intense. Do you ever dabble in other sports? Have you ever thought about trying like Highland Games or anything?
I haven't really, no. I mean, never say never. There are things I want to do. Like there's the Dinny Stones and all sorts of things up in Scotland. There's the Manhood Stones and everything to try. To go over to Iceland and the the original Husafell and the Fullstärke Stone to give those a go. Just they'll be on my bucket list of things to do for sure. But as for moving sports, that's not going to happen. But other feats of strength, if you like, that's definitely on my list of things.
I was going to ask if you've done any of those things because they're so close by.
I haven't. I was preparing for the Dinny Stones, and then 2020 happened, and we couldn't obviously go anywhere for 2020, and it fell further and further down my list of priorities during that time. And then competition season started, and I've sort of gone back into that. It's like you say, it's very close, and I could go and do it almost whenever. I feel my grip is one of my stronger traits, so I don't think it'll be a problem. But I would love to. I'd absolutely love to do it.
It's true, but something like that will definitely take it out of you, especially if you have like a strict competition schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I need to try and make it fit without detriment to everything else.
So would you hook grip it? I guess that's the only way people do Dinny Stones, right? Everyone just hook grips it. It
would definitely be hook grip. I mean, I've done the Dinny Stone weight in a gym, but obviously it doesn't count unless it's with the official stones. It's only about 332 kilos from memory.
Yeah.
So it's not, to hook grip that isn't too bad.
That's interesting that the hook grip is on that because it's a non-rotating bar, and I've always found that hook gripping, anything that's not driving your thumb back in your hand like a rotating bar, that's where hook grip is really beneficial. Really, essentially makes the grip fatter and harder to hold. I know they hook grip in Highland Games. I think there's a little different reason for it. It's not the grip so much because I actually started hook gripping like weight for distance. I was doing it just like with kind of like a monkey grip, I guess, which was fine, but you tense up. Whereas if you hook grip, it gives you kind of a little bit more length. But I've actually started to lose my grip because I have to wrap my fingers around much more than just the handle, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to hear that hook grip is the preferred method to pick up Denny stones on rings. I would think that just get as much surface area on those things as possible, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the way the way I tried it at the time, and I think from memory, I think a lot of other people have done hook grip. I mean, not to say it's the only way to do it. Obviously,
Sure.
Feel free to give it a bash.
It's true, because it really is like it's an impressive feat. Because it's still everyone remembers Chloe Brennan lifting them up as like a 141 athlete or something. Like that's crazy. Just like, but I think that's a testament to like overall the whole sport's being pushed. I think some people are a little bit like surprised that like John Hack was invited, but I think we need that kind of exposure and stuff of like watching him. Like I still, what is it? Like one of his power stair videos got like over 100,000 views, like 16,000 people liking it. Like that's huge, like exposure. I think, which was crazy because it was just a normal, like, I mean, it still was like power stairs, like heavy because it's John Hack, but it was interesting to see how many people are surprised by that and like really into that. I was like, that you can't buy that kind of exposure.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think John Hack has a very big and very active fan base, and I think it's only going to be a good thing that he got invited.
That's true, because he seems like a fun guy and everything.
Yeah.
I was like, that's an interesting thing. I was wondering, like, what was the camaraderie like there?
Yeah, no, he seemed. Yeah, he was a really, really nice guy. He was a little bit quiet here and there, but for the most part, yeah, he was like I think it's true for pretty much all athletes within the sport is another reason why I love it so much is the camaraderie. Is that we're all we're athletes and we're competitors on the platform and where it needs to be, but the rest of the time we're just hanging around like mates and friends and just having a chat and just all getting along. And we all know a lot about each other. We all care for each other. And yes, we all want to win. We all want to beat the other guy, but at the same time, we also want them to perform at their best and to do as well as they possibly can as well.
It's true, because you always want to feel like you're going against the best version of someone else. Because like as soon as someone's injured and everything, like it can be hard because there are like those what ifs and everything. I was still very surprised and impressed with the fact that Mike Ramirez went through the whole event with a torn tricep after tearing it on the first event. I was like that. Wow. I kept expecting him to drop out.
I did. And yeah, it was painful, and it was to watching him on the farmers just repeatedly pick and drop just to make up a few inches, and it was just
yeah, because any kind of pick there with sort of like just watching your triceps try to get engaged, but it's just not there.
Yeah.
Like that's a painful one.
Very, yeah.
And stuff. That was overall, I was still like, it was nice seeing everyone hang out and stuff there. Like Derek Owens, great friend of the show and stuff. Like it was definitely funny watching him do the Husafel carry and stuff.
With his body malfunction, shall we call it?
With those shit-proof shorts. I was like, that's still one of the funniest moments I've seen, because everyone was like, did he tear his glute? Like, what did he do? Because he's just like holding it and everything. Yeah. Just that very iconic waddle off the stage. Just
just to have him laying there holding himself saying, I've shit myself.
God. Not what you want to be remembered for in your first international.
I don't plan on letting him forget it either.
Yeah.
It's like that was crazy, but he put up a good showing. And that's like that. It was crazy to watch essentially that like top 10, top 13 group of people. Like there's just a handful of points between everyone and stuff, which I think is always like that good thing, like we've said, of like you need every point you can get, but still 15.5 points like that. I kept looking at that, and people there like, do you think like the podium might shift up at all? I was like, maybe second and third will, but like all you had to do is finish the stairs, and you still did it with flair and everything. And that was a good one, because I like the fact that like the stairs seemed really solidly designed and stuff. I was wondering, because at first it looked like there was a little metal lip that might cause issues, but it seemed like no problem.
It seemed okay, yeah. The lip was there. They taped it down, but otherwise, no issues.
I was like, it was good, because it is. It was nice too. Of like Luke reached out to us to talk about you right away, so I was like, we have to do it, because this was huge, because it really is like, I think a testament to like Luke's humility of not calling this Worlds and stuff. But he also did have a post a while back of you can't just call stuff worlds without showing delivering
yeah.
it
Yeah.
and stuff. Because I know they'd have the World Deadlift Championships or like the World's. Wasn't there like the Worlds under something that they did recently? The Deadlift Champions people did in Europe. There's some show.
Yeah.
I thought that was like comparable to that on everything. What was I thinking? There's something I forgot about just now and stuff. But overall, there's something's eating away at me. Are you going to work back towards getting the deadlift record at any time, do you think, or do you said it's kind of slipped away from you?
I don't think it slipped away from me. I do think that it's just not, for this year at least, it's not on my list. It's tough. Yeah, it is something that I want, in essence. I do want to get there. But I'm not at the cost of something else. So for me, being a world champion would mean more than being a world record holder. I've been a deadlift world record holder. It would be nice to be the first 90 to pull 400. Hence, I've tried it and missed it. But looking at the rest of the year and sort of the prep time and recovery time and things, I don't know that I can perform at Europe's, fix my issues with Atlas stones, recover and peak for worlds whilst also trying to set a 400 kilo record. Never say never, and I just don't want to. I think I got blinded by the number of 400 kilos, and I really wanted it really badly. And a lot of other things outside of the gym suffered as a result of that. And it's whether or not I can afford to do that again. I mean, as it stands, my PB or PR, if you like, on deadlift is 392, so it's unofficial world record. It's 4 kilos above the world record. But as much as 8 kilos sounds like it's quite straightforward to add to a deadlift, it's really not.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of load at that sort of weight. So, I mean, it depends. I do want it, but it's a matter of when I can make it fit.
That's true. Because it is hard. And I think Darren is one of the people who, well, we are big fans of deadlifts on the show. Darren will remind you that other things will suffer if you only focus on deadlifts and everything. Because for a while, I only focus on zerchers, which is fun. It's definitely a good way of just zerching from the floor. But it does, everything will suffer. Like your overhead's going to be terrible. Everything's going to be kind of hard just focusing on that one thing. But I think that's a huge number, though, on everything. It'll be interesting to see everyone get to that and stuff, because I know that's one thing I was surprised that they didn't do. It would be interesting to see a max deadlift thing with John Hack doing it, because his are just so crazy.
I mean, yeah, he's got a 415 deadlift already.
Yeah,
at 93. So if he can drop the other 3 kilos in body weight and still pull 415, it's going to be a no contest. Especially if he's, I don't know if he'd ever step foot in a suit, but with it being strongman and being allowed to wear a deadlift suit, if he did and he got good at it, I don't know where he'd stop.
Yeah, because I was thinking, because like if you watch him, the way he lifts, he actually gets his air at the top and everything, and his grip's good enough. He doesn't really need the straps. So it's like in a suit, if you're really good at getting that air at the top, that extra, like, depending on how many kilos you're thinking it can add, would be huge there.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a monstrous sight to behold someday. It's Sean Hack in a Metal King or Metal Jack, those bright orange ones.
Yes,
that's the one. That's
man.
The Jack is just.
You can get those in black also.
You can. My Jack is black.
They don't have to be orange.
That's the funny part. Is for a while I thought that was the only way you could get them. I was like, why is there single ply, like the feels like just a singlet almost is black, and then everyone has this bright orange suit.
Yeah, no, the single is still a heavy suit. But yeah, I don't know why everybody started doing the orange, because it's so just ugly. I agree. I hate it. He's looking like a giant pumpkin on the stage, man.
That's very topical and everything. It's interesting to see metal been still going. They're the best suits in the game. I know they briefly had some controversy and stuff, but it's always like, that's the standard there when you see that. And it's a good reminder to everyone that the black does exist. And you don't necessarily have to get that bright orange, because I thought maybe the bright orange one was cheaper, because if you could save $50, maybe, but they're the exact same price.
Yeah.
So it's just, you're picking the default settings there and everything.
Yeah.
So overall, I know usually it's Darren who will mention that we do try to keep this around an hour or so. So But the nice thing is we don't have our deadline because it's not evening time here. This has
Good.
been a very special episode where people can actually watch the sunrise with us. Of like you can see it
Yeah.
between Darren and I's screens of just getting brighter and brighter in the room.
Yep.
I'm like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
has
no, it's
a
been
really
great.
good one.
It's been great having you on here, Dan. Any final words you want to say? I mean, like promote your
Yeah,
promote anything, just anything you want to say to close it up, man.
No, I just want to kind of thank you guys for having me, and it's been an absolute honor to even be invited on here. But for otherwise, I mean, my social media, I'm sure may well would be tagged, but I'm rubbish at all others, but I use Instagram the most. So fortitude.strength on my hat and on the overlay would be a place to find me. And yeah, I like to be as as easy to communicate with as possible. So if anyone has queries or questions or whatever, just fire them away. But no, otherwise, you'll see me next on the top step of the European Championships.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Worlds as well.
Yeah. Good luck. We'll be watching and wishing you all the best.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
Support us on Patreon or Anchor, and find us on Instagram or Facebook.